Ja, vår sista talare här på Lyssna har en väldigt speciell historia att berätta. Han har nämligen byggt ut sina sinnen. Neil Harbisson, han är grundare av Cyborg Foundation som arbetar för att fler ska förstå möjligheterna som finns idag med cybernetik att bygga ut sinnena, bygga ut kroppsdelarna. Och han är själv omvandlad till en cyborg och han är här idag för att berätta om Life in the Age of Cyborgs. So please welcome Mr. Neil Harbisson.
Thank you. Let's see. Oops. Sorry. Okay. Well, I was born with an unusual visual condition called achromatism, which is total color blindness. So I've never seen color. I don't know what blue looks like. I don't know what yellow looks like because I've never seen it. So even if someone describes to me what blue is, it's really difficult to understand because if you've never seen color, it's hard to understand what color is. So when I was a child and I was growing up, I tried to ignore color, but it's impossible to ignore color because you keep mentioning color every single day. So even if I wanted to ignore it, I could still listen to the sound of someone mentioning a color every single day of my life in things that have nothing to do with the beauty of color. It's things like red cross, yellow pages, blue tooth, green peas, orange, red bull, pink panther, blue tag, yellow submarine, brown sugar. James Brown is in his surname. Greenland, huge country, which is not even green. So I kept hearing these color names every single day. Also, when you use color as a code, it can be quite confusing because if you use like hot water and cold water sometimes only uses color codes. And also maps can be confusing because they use color codes. This is fine, but if I go to Tokyo, I can get easily lost because some maps only use color codes. And then when I was learning the flags from countries, I had this situation where 3 countries share exactly the same flag. So it was confusing. And then also when people, if someone asked me, have you seen a man with ginger hair, blue eyes, and dressed in pink? I would have no idea if I've seen this man, because the only information I get here is that the man has hair, that he has eyes, and that he's not naked. So basically, the reason why I wanted to perceive color was not because of the beauty of color. It was not because seeing in black and white is sad. It was because I wanted to have this social element in life, because color is an extremely social and popular element. So when I was studying music, I decided to study piano because piano is a black and white instrument, so I thought I would be in a black and white world. But then when I studied composition, I realized that there's been many theories relating music and color. Like Newton did a theory that related each note of the scale to a specific color, and after him there were many, many more theories that related color and sound or sound and color. So I became very interested in the relationship between both. So when I was studying composition at Dartington in England, I decided to start a project with the aim of hearing colors. So the aim was to create a third eye that would allow me to hear the colors around me. So the first prototype was in 2003, and it was a webcam connected to a 5-kilo computer and a pair of headphones. The software would pick up the color in front of me, and then it would transpose it 40 octaves so that I could hear the frequency of light. So if we could hear the frequency of light of the color red, we would hear a note between F and F sharp, and then if we could hear orange, it would be a bit higher, and then violet would be the highest. So doing this transposition of light frequencies to sound frequencies, I was able to actually hear the colors around me. So I started by the aim was actually to send 360, but I started with 6 colors, then 12, then 24, and after 3 years of hearing color permanently, I was able to distinguish 360 different microtones, 1 for each degree of the color wheel. This is how I hear color. It's small microtones. So now we're hearing from F to F sharp. It's like 30 microtones, and it's from going from red to orange. So it's extremely microtonal. It's 360 microtones in an octave, and it took me 3 years to distinguish these microtones. At the beginning, it was confusing because wherever I look, there's colors. So I kept hearing colors all the time. So it was, I had strong headaches, and then also my ears blocked. But after a few months, these went away, and it became normal to hear color. The information, I didn't have to think about the notes of the colors. It became all automatic, so it became subliminal. And in the end, I started having a perception of color, and I started having favorite colors depending on the sound. So this became my sense of color, hearing it instead of seeing it. So when I was able to sense all the visual colors in 2007, 2008, we added the saturation levels. So color also has saturation. So depending on the saturation of a color, I hear it in a louder volume. If it's less saturated, it's in a lower volume. When I was able to sense all the colors, I didn't see why I should stop there, because there's many more colors around us that we cannot see. So I extended color perception to infrareds and ultraviolet. So since 2009, I can actually sense more colors than the visual ones, which is quite practical, because if I go to a shop or a bank, for example, I can tell if the alarms are on or off because of the infrared. And in many cases, the alarms are off. So it's interesting to know. Also, ultraviolet allows me to know if it's a good day or a bad day to sunbathe, because if I hear a lot of ultraviolet, then I know I have to avoid the sun, basically. I have to wear sunscreen. So ultraviolet is a dangerous color, so it's good to hear it. So now color to me is a straight line, and the aim is to continuously extend my perception of color by adding the sounds and extending the sound range. So since I hear color, instead of playing the black and white piano, I paint on the piano. So I can paint different colors on top of the piano. The piano has become my canvas, and then depending on the colors that I put on, and the antenna allows the audience to hear the sound of color, and then I can play the piano in a completely different way. Through color, these are called color concerts. I can also give piano concerts by painting on them. This is also a piano with a third eye, so the antenna was on the piano, and then whenever I put a color in front, the keys of the piano would play. So if I wanted to play F, I would put red. If I wanted to play C sharp, I would put blue. So in this case, the piano was playing the pianist, and in this case, the piano was playing my socks, because I had different colored socks. This was my final year music composition degree submission. This is a composition. It has 360 different pages. Each page has a different chord because it has different colors. So this was my score, which was based also in color. So this was the sense that I developed, but then I didn't want to use technology, and I didn't want to wear technology. I wanted to become technology. So then I started thinking of designing a new body part that would allow me to sense color independently from my ears and independently from my eyes. I didn't want to use headphones because this was blocking my sense of hearing. And I didn't want to use electronic glasses to see any kind of color. I wanted to have color sense as independent as possible. So the aim was to create an antenna, because an antenna would be independent from sight and ears, and then the antenna would go inside my bone, and then I would hear the sound of color through bone conduction instead of air conduction. So once the antenna was designed, I had to find a doctor willing to do the surgery, and this was difficult because they didn't want to do that. I went to the doctor and I said I wanted an antenna implant, and they said, sorry, we don't do this here. And then you'll have to convince a bioethical committee. So I spoke to the doctors, they said no, but then one of them said, I'll do it anonymously. So one of them did it. So we did the surgery, which was basically drilling the head 4 times. So I would have, this is my head facing down, 4 implants. One is a chip that vibrates depending on the light frequency. This vibration then becomes a note in my inner ear. And then 2 other implants are for the antenna. And then the 4th implant is internet connection, so I can receive colors from other parts of the world. So if someone wants to send me a beautiful color from somewhere, they can do it through the internet, and then I can suddenly sense this color through sound. The operation took 4 hours, and then it took 2 months for the antenna and my head to just merge. So actually part of the implant is a material from Sweden, so I actually feel I'm a bit Swedish because a part of my head is Swedish, so maybe I could apply for Swedish citizenship if I convince the government that I feel that I'm Swedish, because a part of my body is Swedish. So these are now the connections I have. So there's 1 person in each continent that has permission to send colors to my head. I didn't give permission to everyone, otherwise I would be overloaded. So there's 1 in each country, and to me this is like having an eye in each continent. So if there's now a beautiful sunset in Australia, someone from Australia can just point at the sunset with a mobile phone, click a button, and then the colors from the sunset go directly into my head, and I feel them as vibrations that then become sounds. So then I feel I'm perceiving a sunset even if I'm somewhere else. So my brain has changed. Now the audio cortex and the visual cortex are always active. Even when I sleep, my brain creates electronic sounds when I sleep, and to me this is like dreaming in color. So I hear colors in my dreams since 2004. I had a problem in 2004 as well because I had to renew my passport, and they didn't allow me because there's a law that says electronic equipment is not allowed on passport photos. And I said, you have to remove this. And I said, no, this is a body part, an extension of my senses. I feel that I'm a cyborg, a union between cybernetics and organism. And they said, no, just remove it. So I kept insisting, and in the end they allowed me. And this now helps me travel around the world because in airports they don't like technology, so they really don't like me because I have this antenna. So the passport has changed. Now I have the antenna, and whenever the antenna is slightly changed, then I have to renew the passport. So my life has changed in many different ways, in daily things as well. So before I would dress in a way that it would look good, but now I dress in a way that it sounds good. So I decide which notes I want to wear. Like this is 3 different colors that create C major. So this is I'm wearing C major here. That's a happy combination. I would wear this in a party, for example. This is a minor chord, so I would wear this in a funeral. And then that's a song. So you can actually design a suit so that it sounds as a specific melody or song. This is a tie. I really like a piece of electronic music, so I transpose it to color, and then from color to a tie. So now when I wear this, I'm wearing music, and then so it starts the melody up, and then it goes down, down, down. So the longer the tie, the longer the melody, basically. Also, this is a dress that is Moon River, the song Moon River transposed to dress. And also, actually, we made a wedding dress as well. So a woman wanted to get married, but she didn't want to pay musicians, so she became the wedding march. She was wearing the wedding march, so she had the melody on her. My house also has changed because now I've painted the house in a way that it sounds good as well. So my living room now sounds C major. So it has yellow, pink, and blue. So when I go in the living room, I hear C major. The floor is all red. All the house has red floor because red is the lowest frequency of light. So it creates the lowest frequency of sound. So it gives a very profound sound. The exit door is green now because green is in the middle of the spectrum. So it's like a tuning fork. It's like an A. So when you go out before, it kind of tunes yourself before you go out in the street. The bedroom is B, which is a shade of turquoise on the left. The bed is E, which is a shade of pink. And on the right, you have violet, which is D. So I have B, E, and D, which is bed. So it makes sense to have bed in the bedroom. And then the kitchen is high pitch, a high frequency. So it gives me a kind of alert. It's like a violet, a shade of violet. So in the kitchen, I'm kind of alert. It's also, violet is a color that we don't usually eat, so it doesn't interfere with anything else in the kitchen. So the food has changed because now I can also, depending on how I put the food on the plate, I can actually eat my favorite song. So I like composing music with food, and then especially salads, because there's many different colors in salads. And I'm doing this project with Celia de Can Roca in Barcelona, and we're creating a food player. So people will be able to ask for a song, and then it will be served on this plate player. And then by turning around the food of the plate on this, you'll be able to hear it through this antenna. So you'll be able to eat, for example, Beethoven's Ode of Joy, or you can have some, I don't know, Vivaldi, because it has a lot of colors, or you can have some also Lady Gaga dessert if you want. Now you can hear the song on the plate. This will be presented in January next year. So this is an example of how I hear different fruit, vegetables, and elements that I find that sound interesting. So I can now compose music by looking at things. I don't need to play an instrument anymore. By looking at different colored objects, I can create melodies, and I can compose the music I want by putting it in a certain order. So my experience of walking around a supermarket has changed a lot, because it's like going to a nightclub now, because supermarkets have lots of different colors, especially the aisle with cleaning products. That's the best section of any supermarket, because it has very bright colors, very loud notes, and very unusual combinations. milk is silent. So elements that have no hue are silent. It's not only supermarkets, it's also art has changed. I can now go to a museum or an art gallery and I can listen to a Picasso or I can listen to an Andy Warhol because painters have become composers. So this is the sound of the scream, for example. I can hear the scream. It sounds very microtonal because there's lots of microtones of color. Whereas Andy Warhol sounds very different, has very pure notes and very loud. So you can hear an Andy Warhol from the other end of the museum usually, because it's very saturated. And then more traditional paintings sound less because they have less saturation. So you need to get closer to listen to a Goya or a Da Vinci because they have less saturation basically. So this is an example of an old painting here. Sounds very soft. So it's not only galleries or art, it's also people. When I look at someone now, I can also listen to their face. So instead of drawing someone's face, what I like doing is getting close to someone's face, and then I write down the note, the sound of the eyes, the sound of the skin, the sound of the lips, the sound of the hair, and then I send them an MP3 of their face so that they can listen to themselves. And one of the first ones I did was of Prince Charles, so I asked him if I could listen to his face, and this was his reaction when I asked him if I could. So after this, I listened to different faces, like Judi Dench has silent hair, like milk. James Cameron has a very high-pitched type of skin, a shade of red that sounds very high-pitched. Al Gore has different sounds in each eye because he has different shades of turquoise. Tim Berners-Lee has a very unusual sound of eyelids. Marina Abramovic is almost completely silent, but her lips are extremely low and F, a very loud F. Steve Reich has small melodies in his eyes because he has different color pattern in his eyes. So you can listen to a melody in his eyes. Steve Wozniak's eyes sound like apples, like green apples. Moby has one note less because he has no hair. Most people have 5 notes, he has one less. Woody Allen sounds very, very soft, like an old painting. Macaulay Culkin sounds almost like C major. His color combinations sound almost like a pure chord, and Philip Glass very microtonal, almost like his music. Bona has very high pitch. The glasses were the outstanding thing because it was a shade of violet, so it was very loud. And Buzz Aldrin I had a situation that he didn't believe that it was implanted, so then I had to show it to him, and he looked disgusted, I think. So this is an example of a sound portrait. This eye is slightly higher, so you can hear. So these are the 5 notes that I usually send to people, and then they can listen to it. And in this case, it's in video, but it's usually just a sound file. What really surprised me is that people who say they're black, they're not actually black, and people who say they're white, they're not actually white. People who say they're black, they're actually very, very dark orange, and people who say they're white, they're very, very light orange as well. So the fact that people say that humans are black and white is completely false. We are all orange. So yes. So when I listen to someone's skin, it sounds exactly the same. It's a shade of F sharp. We all have these different shades of F sharp regardless of the light of the skin. Also, I can create concerts with faces by creating rhythm. So people usually, the audience cues, and then I amplify the sounds in my head so that people can hear the sound of the colors, and then I create rhythms from the color of someone's eyes, the lips, the skin, and then I create layers. So it's called face concerts, and they're based on the colors of the audience. So if the audience doesn't like the concert, it's their fault, because that's where the music comes from. The last color concert was done in Monaco last month. I did a face concert of Prince Albert II of Monaco, so he actually accepted this, and I started by playing his eyes, lips, skin, and then it was a concert that kept adding layers of sound. Another project was the City of Colors, where I traveled around Europe trying to define each city with specific colors, because people say that their city is gray, but it's not true. Each city has its own dominant hues. So this was a specific project where I tried to find the dominant color of each city. The secondary effect of hearing color is that music also becomes color, or when I hear specific sound, I can relate it to color. So what I like doing is painting music. So this is Mozart's Queen of the Night. This is the first note here, and then the last one. So I go note by note, and I transpose the sound into its corresponding color. This is Baby Baby by Justin Bieber. So it looks very different from Mozart. And then it's not only music, it's also, well, this is Vivaldi, the Four Seasons of Vivaldi. This is John Cage's 433, silent. And these are speeches. So when we speak, each syllable corresponds to a specific frequency, and this frequency corresponds to a specific color if you transpose the frequency up until it becomes a color. So these are two speeches. This is Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream, and this is a speech by Hitler. So they look very different because Martin Luther King spoke between C and E, so it gives this dominant colors, whereas Hitler had no dominant frequency. He kept jumping from one frequency to another.
En nom del poble i del Parlament, el govern que presideixo assumeix totes les facultats del poder a Catalunya, proclama l'estat català de la República Federal Espanyola.
So it can go on and on and on and on until you can then see the dominant color of someone's voice. This is also an accelerating car. So when cars accelerate, it creates a rainbow in my head. So I really like hearing because it creates the Doppler effect is actually creating a rainbow. The white line is when it changes gear. A sound palette is a palette I made for musicians so that they can actually play colors. So they learn the color of each note first, and then they learn the color of each chord. So if you combine the color of C, of E, and G, you have a unique color that this is the chord of C major. So they can learn the sound palette, and then they can play it on stage. So on stage, instead of reading a score, I use the colors on stage to give them the score. So if I project red, they all play F. If I project different colors, they play different notes. This is also a public sculpture in Barcelona where you can walk underneath and then you can hear a melody because it's designed in a way that you can listen to a melody with a mobile phone. So you can download the app and then you can listen to the public sculpture. And at night, you can use also the app to listen to the projection. So I transpose sounds into colors so that people can listen to the colors with their mobile phone. Well, this is an example of what happens at night. So my situation in the streets has changed a lot as well, because for the last 12 years, I've had an antenna sticking off my head, so people stop me and they ask me what it is. So I've been talking to strangers every single day since 2004. What has changed is what people think. In 2004, people thought it was a light. Then in 2005, they thought it was a microphone for chats. In 2008, they thought it was something to do with GoPro. In 2011, they thought it was something to do with Google Glass. And now the last thing was a child asked me if it was a selfie stick. So what people, it keeps changing. I also had to change the design. So I have now there's a kind of skin over the top so that if someone pulls the antenna, because sometimes it happens that someone pulls the antenna, then the skin comes off and then they fall. It's usually drunk women that try to pull the antenna. It's the same type of group. In 2010, I created the Cyborg Foundation with my friend Moon Ribas with the aim of helping other people extend their senses by applying technology to their bodies. So we've done different projects. We believe a cyborg is someone that either feels psychologically that they are technology, or that someone that has biologically technology inside, or people whose brain has been changed due to technology. So there's 3 different types of cyborgs, we think. So many people are already psychological cyborgs. People that, for example, maybe 20 years ago, they would say, my mobile phone is running out of battery, but now they say, I'm running out of battery. So this is a clear change that psychologically they are talking about the mobile phone as if the mobile phone was themselves. So this is happening more and more, where people are psychologically united to cybernetics. A project with it was internal radar, which allowed Moon to feel movement with her eyes shut, earrings that vibrate whenever there's presence in front of you. So you could feel if someone was walking with your eyes closed, and also depending on the interval, you could tell the exact speed. Also, if you turn around the earrings, then you can feel if someone's behind you, so it gives you retrovision. Also, a project was a small camera inside a finger, so that you could sense things through vibrations in your fingers. So if you wanted, you could have this same system that give you vibrations depending on the color. So he has a finger. He can also use it to take pictures. So he can use his hand when he's with his friends to take a picture. He can take selfies like this. So it's something that he has in the small finger. The internal compass is small. You can have it implanted at the bottom of your leg, and it vibrates whenever you face north. So it allows you to feel orientated wherever you are. So if you feel lost, you just turn around, and then you feel a vibration when you face north. The 360-degree perception, this was the first prototype, but now it can be implanted. It also gives you vibrations depending on the presence around you. Cybernetic eyes for blind people that transpose into sound different elements, not only color, but also distance can be transposed into sound. Objects or also books, instead of being translated into Braille, they can be used with an antenna, and then you can hear the book without having it to translate into Braille. Because many restaurants, for example, they don't have the menu transposed into Braille, so it works for them to hear the written speech.
So I'm here, I'm blind, you know, but I'm also here with Sarah, which is a friend of mine. And
so
she's
he's a
blind
completely
too.
blind
So what we are
boy
doing
from
right
Brazil.
now,
He learned to
taught
distinguish
me
three colors,
three different colors.
in just
and
2
now
minutes,
he's going to
basically.
show me a color, and I have to identify which color is it. Yeah. This is yellow.
Yeah. So
Yes.
he's hearing the frequency of yellow and
This is blue.
yeah. And here I tricked him because I taught him 3 colors and I don't know
Yellow.
about the yellow.
Yeah, correct.
So to me, it's quite magical when you see someone completely blind distinguish color through sound. They learn color very fast because they're used to distinguishing sound more than people that focus their senses into vision. The earborg is also transposing sound into color, so you can visualize a concert. So if you go to a concert, you can have a small screen, and then you can see the frequencies of sound through a small screen. So if you're completely deaf, you can also visualize the concert live through different colors. Or you can listen to someone speak as well.
I
you
have
can
a
see
dream
the voice.
that one day, even the state of Mississippi.
Well, one of the last projects is internal light. I have some teeth missing, and I didn't want to have it replaced with normal teeth, so I created a small teeth with a tooth with a small light, so that in case of emergency, I can just click and I have light in my mouth. So it's something very practical, that in case of emergency, you always have inner light. But then the problem was that when I was eating, the light was going on and off all the time. So I had it removed, and now we're trying to find a way. The other tooth that I have here, it's a Bluetooth tooth, so it has Bluetooth, and it will allow me to move my antenna wirelessly. So the aim is that through my Bluetooth tooth, I'll be able to control the antenna. So if I want it to go left, it will move to the left. If I want it to go to the right, it will move to the right. This is sculptures that are now in Barcelona, and this sculpture is connected to my head. So people, when they go to the museum, they can put colors under the sculpture, and then there's cybernetics inside that can send the colors from the museum to my head. So even if I'm here, someone is in the museum, I suddenly hear the color that people are putting underneath. And then there's also a sculpture based on Moon Riba's arm. Moon Ribas now has a chip in her other arm, in this one, that allows her to feel earthquakes. So whenever there's an earthquake in the world, her body vibrates. She's been feeling earthquakes for over 2 years now. There's an earthquake every 10 minutes, so her body keeps vibrating every 10 minutes, and it's normal now for her. So this is her seismic sense. To end, I believe that becoming a cyborg can actually bring us closer to nature. Many people think that becoming a cyborg will bring us closer to machines, but I feel completely the opposite. I feel closer to insects now because I share an antenna with insects. I feel closer to dolphins because I hear through bone conduction like dolphins, and I feel closer to animals that can sense infrared and ultraviolet. My next stage now is to connect to space. I've already connected since October last year, so I can connect to NASA's satellite station, and then I can hear the colors from space. This is a live concert where I had a microphone where I was amplifying the sounds of space, of the colors of space to the audience on television, and then people were able to hear the sounds of space. The aim is to have a permanent connection to space, so I'll be having this in 2 years. I'll have stereo vision. I'll be using the internet to hear the colors from space, and the antenna to hear the colors from Earth. That's all from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Neil. So interesting. Do you think we are too afraid to mess with our bodies doing this? Because I guess many people regard you as rather extreme doing this surgery. Do you think that we are too afraid of doing things with
Well,
our
when the
bodies?
mobile phone appeared, many people were afraid. So many people did not buy a mobile phone when it was available because they thought it was dangerous or it wasn't good. Or even with microwaves, everyone was saying that it was dangerous. But people are used to it now, and everyone has a mobile phone, and people don't talk about microwaves anymore. So I think it's the same with this. People now are a bit. I think, a bit scared, I guess, but it will change for sure. I think the generation born in the 21st century that now are 14, 15, 16, they already are thinking about it. So it will soon happen. In the late 20s, we'll see more people with new body parts and new senses.
How many like you are there? How many people are doing this?
For sensory extensions, there aren't many, but for body or for medical reasons, there's many.
Yeah.
So for medical reasons, it's now accepted. For sensory extensions, it's still not accepted.
So you're the kind of explorer part of this movement, you
Yes.
say? Yeah.
We're basically more into senses and perception, which is a direction that most of the cybernetics are not focusing on.
Yeah. Have you faced any problems with the implant? Has it worked the way? I mean, sometimes.
No, it works. It works, but your body could have. My body could have rejected, but it didn't reject it.
No.
So, but when you have something implanted, then your body might reject it. So you might have to remove it and then change the material. There's many different biocompatible materials, so you need to find which one is for you.
Any questions from the audience?
Hello, I try my best in English. I was just wondering, do you hear the different notes in your head all the time? Because during disturbance, when you talk, I think it would disturb me to hear those things all the time. How do you cope with that?
It's like hearing, but it's a different type of hearing. When you have a bone ear, because this is a bone conduction ear, it's different from hearing through your ears. Normal sounds come through air conduction, so you feel a direction. This has no direction. This is an inner sound. It's like thinking of sound, so it doesn't interfere with other sounds. Even if it was completely loud here, I could hear perfectly well any color in front of me, or even if there were lots of colors, I could hear perfectly well the sounds around me. So that's why I decided to create a new input of sound that wouldn't interfere with my hearing.
So you don't think that the sound that you hear from colors disturbs your ordinary listening?
No, it did at the beginning, the first 5 months, but then the brain got used to it and it started separating. It's the same if you are used to seeing shape and color, whereas at the beginning when you were 3 or 4 years old, I guess it was overwhelming, or even younger, and then you start coping with the chaos around us.
Hi, I'm wondering, how did you choose which colors to connect to which frequencies?
I didn't choose it. It's simply transposing light frequencies 40 octaves down until they become audible. That's why it's less than an octave. All the visual spectrum of humans fits within less than an octave if you divide color into two. So you treat color as if it was a sound frequency. You divide it into two and two until it becomes it becomes audible, and it all fits within less than an octave. And then I added infrared and ultraviolet, so then it is an octave now.
Okay, thank you.
Would you consider yourself more of an expert in color or in sound?
It's both. I think it's what I have is sonochromatism, so it's both. It's a union of sense. It's a new sense called sonochromatism. There's no separation. Color is not one thing and sound is another thing. It's exactly the same thing. There's no division here. So when you talk about sound, I think of color. If you talk about color, I think of sound. There's no separation. It's kind of a forced synesthesia, but it's not synesthesia because I never see color. So to me, color is just this sound. It's never a visual. I never see color. It's always sound. So it's both, basically.
Has your sense of the value of life changed since you started to hear colors?
Of life.
Life, yeah. Your own life. I mean.
Yes. Now I see getting old as a positive thing, because the older you get, if you have cybernetic senses, the better your senses will be, because technology keeps evolving. So instead of seeing that getting old means that my senses will degenerate, I see that getting old will be much better. My perception of color and sound will be much better when I'm 80 than now. So that's a way of getting old as a good thing.
It will be so upgraded when you're 80.
Yes, basically.
Any more questions? Do you think that you're one person doing this experiment and learning and what to gain from it and going out in this new area? What do you think would happen if we were a huge number of persons experimenting? What would we gain by to collective learning about this field?
A lot, because knowledge comes from our senses. So if we extend our senses, we'll gain more knowledge of reality. All our knowledge comes from our senses. So the more senses, the more options we have to understand our context, our planet, and space, basically. So I think we would feel much more connected to other species, because we would share senses that other animals have, and we would feel nature in a stronger way. Like our next project actually is about sound as well. It's we're going to create, well, this same system allows you to hear infrasounds or ultrasounds, because bone conduction allows you to hear more than your ears. So, for example, having a infrasound connection here would allow me to hear things that exist in nature, but we can't sense. So this would, for example, many animals can sense danger through infrared. For example, like they say that the elephants in Thailand heard infrasound before it happened, and they started running up because they could hear the tsunami through the infrasound. So if people had infrasonic perception, they would feel things that are coming. Ultraviolet allows you to feel ultraviolet, which is a dangerous color as well. So it would definitely extend our security as well, and also extend our awareness of reality in a way that we are now kind of not sensing.
Are we going to be changed in a better way and turn into better persons because of this connection to nature and other species, or will we immediately become super soldiers and use this technology to do bad things to each other? What
Soldiers are actually going the other way. They're separating themselves from technology, like like drones, which means you can stay at home and then you send the drone and the drone kills. Yeah, so they're actually going the opposite way, separating body, separating the soldier from the actual tool.
Yeah.
This is becoming cyborg can actually bring us closer to the perception of reality from other species. So now if I see my cat staring at the wall and I sense that there's infrared, I know why the cat is staring at the wall. I feel a stronger connection with the cat because we are both perceiving the same thing. Or if I see insects going to a specific flower and I sense that there's lots of ultraviolet there, I understand why the bees are going to that flower. So this type of connection with other species will definitely be good for our planet, because people have been separating themselves from other species and from the planet in a very fast way, and this is definitely not good. I think we need to realize that we are in a much wider group. We are organisms, and we should respect all other living organisms and learn from them.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just would like to ask you, are there more abilities you would like to gain? Do you have like a dream scenario?
Well, the infrasound, I can have it because I have an audio input in my... So this is an easy one to add. So I think, yeah, infrasound. Also, you can sometimes hear earthquakes before they happen. So, or you can hear things. Yeah. So I think infrared is an interesting sense to extend. Sorry, infrasound. But yeah, also the use of the internet as a sense is what I'm exploring now, which is using the internet to sense the colors from space. So instead of using internet as a tool, we can start using it as a sensory extension or as a sense. And I like exploring this.
Do you have a favorite color?
Yeah, infrared, actually. Infrared is the lowest, and it's very low sound, and it's very peaceful. Red is visually the closest. Red should be treated as a peaceful color because it's the lowest frequency. It's very calm. But culturally, it's been seen as a kind of agitated or passionate or violent color, whereas violet should be treated like this because it's a higher frequency. So violet, the traffic light should be not red, but violet, or the traffic stops violet because it's high pitch, high frequency alert. So.
Thank you. Any more questions? Yes.
Thank you. There was a question of upgrading. Do you have to upgrade yourself? I'm thinking about pixels. Not many years ago, we could only see so and so many pixels, and today we can see millions, or we can use millions in the computer. Do you have the same need to upgrade your chip to hear more or more detail, or please tell us?
Yeah, to hear more. Yeah, so I want to extend beyond infrared and ultraviolet. So now there's many ultraviolets and many infrared. So now I'm in middle infrared and middle ultraviolet, but then there's far ultraviolet and far infrared. So the aim is to continuously extend the perception. And this can be done wirelessly because I have internet connection. So you don't need to open and close my head. Or I can also change the lens here. So this lens can be changed. So there's no need to open and close.
Thank you. Any last question here?
Probably a naive question. How do you feel when the system doesn't work anymore?
It always works.
Does it happen?
So when I had a computer in 2003, in 2004, it would sometimes freeze. So I would perceive everything in the same color because it froze the computer, but the chip never freezes. So there's never a problem. No.
Does it mean that you never switch off anything?
No. Whenever I die, this will be the last thing to die because it will still be going on because the battery will still be there. So even when I die, the last thing that will die will be the antenna.
To what extent have you been contacted by researchers? Because to me, you seem to be a good research object because of the way you were born and the way you're starting from scratch experiences with the senses.
Yeah, it's interesting for different areas. Like for the brain, the study of the brain, what happens when you unite a software and a brain for over a decade. This has never been done before, so it's neuroscientists find it interesting to scan my brain and see how it works. But also it's in an interest of also astrologers, astronomers, because this works in space. You don't need air to hear. So I can hear in space. I can hear underwater because I don't need air conduction. So I'm using it for color, but you could use it for anything else. I can actually receive phone calls in my head if I want. I've tried it, but I don't have a microphone to reply. So it's just a one-way phone call. But I can receive phone calls and I can hear perfectly well what people tell me in my head. And then this is a possible way of communication. Especially in space or under the water.
Yeah.
So that's a way in which this could go as a communication ear.
Okay. And if we want to follow your experiments from now on, where do we do that?
Facebook. Yeah, Facebook
Yeah.
is where I usually post, or Instagram, that's where I keep to date. The website is slow, and whereas Facebook is much more live.
Last question must be, when you watch us, the audience here, what can you tell us that
Well,
we didn't
Scandinavians
know?
sound more, there's more notes than Spain, which is where in Barcelona, people are more F sharps, because it's shades of brown and red, so whereas here you have more blue eyes, which is, so this has a C, C sharps, B, and then you have usually blonde hair, so it's a G, so you have two different notes that are quite separate, so it's, you sound more musical, your faces create more chords, like traditional chords than Latin countries, because there's more, it's more
makes
microtonal.
Sense. Yeah. Well, Neil Harbisson, thank you so much for coming to Lund. Thank you very much.
Thank you.